Welcome to our podcast.
This is crap.
Cut the design crap.
Design crap.
Product design. Hello. Welcome to the second episode of Cut the Design Crap. Today we have a special guest. Oren has joined us today, and he brought up a great topic that we want to talk about. It's user personas. Are they good, bad? We're going to talk about all the details related to user personas and the value of them to the organization, to users, to our cross-functional partners, product design managers, the software engineering. So I will kick us off, and let's start by talking about how they're used in the product design space. And actually, I will gonna hand it over to Oren really quickly, because I know you brought up the topic, and I want to understand what is the controversy behind personas.
But first, Oren, maybe you could introduce yourself. What you're doing at the moment, where you work in, what's your passion?
So I've known you two from Zoom Info. I worked there for a long time, and I'm now working at TytoCare, which is a medical device company. It's a medical device where you can do a doctor's checkup from home. So it has a stethoscope and everything else. You can even check your ears. It's really nice, and it saves you a trip to the doctor.
It's cool.
So it's nice and very interesting. So I brought up the issue of personas because I never really liked them that much, and I always thought they're a bit over. What's the word? Like they're
Overhyped, maybe.
Yeah, overhyped, and I don't see them as a mandatory part of each and every UX process. And that's my opinion.
And currently, you are working with personas. Where the place where you work?
Well, I don't tell anyone, but usually I create the personas after the fact, just because it's something more of it's nice to show and to explain the project. But yeah, I mean, I'm currently working on the physician side, so my personas are medical doctors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree that there's a hype surrounding personas, but why is that so annoying to us, to you?
Because they're never enough. And there's so many parts of personas which are, we feel them, their age, maybe age might be important, but, what they like to do, or, smaller bits of information about their life, which I don't care about, and no one will care. It's just nice. It's even not a nice to have. It's just nice. But who needs it?
Is there a case when you thought that you've done them that were valuable versus maybe when they're not valuable? Like, I would argue in your particular position right now, it's probably critical to really understand that user. But we're talking about like creating a persona versus like the research involved in understanding who that user is. But do you have a case where you created the personas and they were actually really valuable to an organization?
Well, they're always. I mean, I kind of I'm going to take a step back. They're important, but they're never really that helpful, I think, because you can never cover all of the different approaches and users. And yeah, okay, let's say physicians. That's my persona. Okay, but there's a young one which is good with technology, and old school physician which is still uses leeches, and there's different types of in between them. There's so many types of personas and use cases.
Yeah,
it never covers everything. And for example, you did a lot of good work on the admin persona for Zoom Info, but I also, I raised an eyebrow because I said, okay, the Zoom Info admin is like 100 different personas. You can never really cover them.
Yeah, sure. I think my experience, if I talk about it a little bit, because I was thinking about what's good about them, what's bad about them. And so I think from my perspective, I've done a whole bunch of user research over the years in different roles and jobs. And the user personas are something that I feel we have to advocate for so that we all have a shared understanding of who we're solving the problems for. So I know you're not saying that they're not valuable or anything like that, but I say that like maybe the organizations don't really understand how to leverage the information. I think my example most recently is the sales operations user at ZoomInfo going into the admin portal. And I think when we started that work for Copilot, we didn't understand the sales operations person. Like, who are they? What are they doing? What kind of decisions are they making? So I think some of that demographic information that you're talking about or referencing isn't you're right. The scope is so large. I mean, we can talk about doctors and we can say they're old, young, they have different approaches to how they handle them, even different disciplines do things different ways. But I think some of the fundamental information about how they work or what systems they have to interact with or the approach they take to making decisions, some of that information I've found is helpful to share with like our cross-functional partners. So when we're designing a system, we understand who we're targeting, right? Like, I feel like in my history, I've done user research and said, okay, there's maybe 5 different types of users. And I've asked the organization then, who do you want to prioritize to focus on first, right? Like, are we going to work on this doctor that is in a hospital and sees patients? He's a surgeon or he's somebody that is like an ER doctor or something like that. Like, let's focus on these users first. And so sometimes I've recommended that. And then we'll go to like maybe doctors in offices or, that are not in a hospital situation or something like that. So sometimes that I find really helps us articulate what problems we're solving for who at the onset, and like maybe prioritizing that to look down, like, okay, we're going to focus on this person first, this person and that person. And then that shared understanding is then presented as a user persona to our cross-functional partners. So the tech, the software engineers know, the product managers know, this is who we're focusing on. It's not this broad doctor base of everybody, everywhere, every age, all this stuff. But it is our responsibility too, I think, to educate about the user persona and the value of the user persona. I do agree, like sometimes what we do is like, we create it and it's there, right? Like it's a pretty artifact that we've created but we have to use that information to like ground the use cases, the work that we're doing to say, this is the problem that we're solving. I would argue with you, and even to go test too. So like if I said, hey, I designed this use case, DAS, right? We're working on DAS. This is the person that we've prioritized that we are working for. So let's find comparative users of this user persona and go test with them. And so sometimes that helps there. But I do think that, like, I agree with you, they do fail. And, a lot of times I think sometimes we go too fast. We're just solving, we're creating features. We're just creating features. And you know what I mean? Like, it's a situation where we don't have an ability to go back and ground ourselves with the user personas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I agree that yes, I think before we start creating a persona, we need to understand what exactly are we searching for, or what exactly are we solving. Because if demographic and all that kind of basic knowledge that we have about the persona is not valuable for us, so there's no reason to collect that. And also, I think maybe most of the time, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Oren knows best about this. Maybe most of the time that there is a need for demographic information is for when we are creating an interface for B2C. Maybe it's something that's more important there. So, and also I gotta say that maybe a lot of the things that we are searching for is solved in our hypothesis, in our user story, in our, like you said, where is the persona? What's the situation that the persona is at that time and is trying to solve? So and I have another question, but we'll save it to the end. It's like some kind of something like a bonus at the end.
What's some other alternatives you think, Oren, that we should do? Like, how should we take this information that's necessary in a lot of cases and share that if we don't use personas? What do you think is the right thing to do?
So
Yeah.
first of all, like I kind of like you said, I think a lot of times the persona is more of a PR, kind of an internal PR tool.
Yes.
You're right, to explain why we're doing what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and who is it for. But I usually try to cover everyone in my head. I know there's so many different users. I try to make the best experience for everyone. That said, you can't really do it.
Yeah.
So I try to concentrate on the jobs to be done, like the specific flows that everyone has to cover. And then, if there's a special case that we need to cover, like accessibility, even that's not a persona.
Yes.
So that's the best tool for me. So I have like a list of every flow that I want to cover.
Okay.
Then I have to kind of arrange it all together, and eventually, sometimes I'm kind of going a bit ahead, but sometimes after you do some user research after the fact, you see that it doesn't really, you have to do something better for your persona.
Okay. So I was going to say, would you approach the jobs to be done in the same manner you would a user persona? Like, what kind of research do you think that you need to do in order to create the jobs to be done?
So jobs to be done, I think it's a better tool for me because I'm very analytical and logical that way. That's the way I think. But it could be a bit too technical.
Okay.
It is a technical approach. It's like, as a user, I have to, I want to get this at the end. So it's very technical. It's easier to solve, in a visual way, I think.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's more like a wireframe of it helps you create the base of your designs, and then you can maybe try to make it more personalized for a persona.
Mm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. In the jobs to be done, do you identify a user, or you just like this encompasses multiple users?
Yeah, I try to cover the most users I can. So that's why it is the end result, what I'm trying to get.
Okay. Okay.
In the previous company that I've worked for, LivePerson, they were actually against personas, and their method was jobs to be done.
Okay.
That was it. They were really, I don't know even why. Maybe it was a waste of time in their mind. I don't know, but that was the state of mind of the whole company. Okay, it's a big company and a serious company, and they insisted not using personas. So it could be done. You're good, Oren. You're in a good place.
Yeah, but the question is it does it create a cold and static design?
That's nice. So my bonus question was regarding to that. How do you think we can use AI to always make it live, make the persona or jobs to be done live? You know what I mean?
More dynamic.
More dynamic, yes, because life is dynamic, right? Personas are dynamic. Our solutions for the customers are dynamic. So something needs to be changed all the time. We know that. We know that personas, we need to, every time that we document it somewhere, we know that at some point we will need to reevaluate that, right? So maybe an AI could help us doing that. How we can do that? What do you think?
Well, this might be outdated by tomorrow, but for now, I think AI is it by itself very technical. It does, it gives you what you want.
Yeah.
But it's still very, very narrow and shallow. I don't know. It's not that good for that. I think it can give you directions and ideas, but it gives you what you want. Yeah.
My experience is I actually was doing this for some side stuff that I was doing, and I said, in the case before where when I was working at Honeywell and I had to actually work on the cancer care program, we have the HIPAA laws here in the United States, and so I couldn't actually go out and interview people who had cancer, right? Because that's private information. And so I had to search online to find representative users, to say, okay, what's their experience like and what do they need? And I actually did this recently with AI because I was trying to find out a day in the life of a truck driver, believe it or not. And I said, a person that's hauling, stuff, what's their experience like from a whole day? And I asked it, ChatGPT, I said, can you go and find this? And you can do that, search the web tool. And it searched and it found research and it compiled a whole day in the life of a long haul truck driver that travels from, I said, this day, this, and they're doing it for 24 hours. What do they do when they wake up? They got to check their load and everything like that. Genius. To me, it was like the idea that I took the persona information and said, I just need a day in the life of it. I'm not looking to like understand their age necessarily, or the nuances between somebody that's a first-time truck driver or somebody that's been doing it for 30 years. I just said, tell me what they do on a day-to-day basis, so then I can use that information. And I felt that AI was genius for that, because it made me think of, wow, I could have used this back when I was at Honeywell and I was trying to get the cancer person like searching the web and get me that information and give it to me in a day-to-day format, and that would have been really amazing for me. So that I thought was super helpful way to go. But it just saved research, right? Like, I don't know that it's necessarily true, but it was a great starting point for me to go, oh, okay, these are things that I need to be thinking about or concerning myself with. And so that, it was like instantaneous. It was just like,
Right.
how can we use that as a basis for maybe the users that aren't accessible to you? It's kind of
Amazing.
yes. So that was super valuable to me, I think. I was going to say, jobs to be done. I wonder if you guys think this, but when we move from user personas, which I feel is an artifact that we as UX, UI, user experience people own, to jobs to be done, in my experience, have been done by product managers. Like, anybody thinks that they can do this. So I'm curious what you guys think, that like, if we transition to that, or if we use that, do you think it's still an artifact that we should be the person that's putting together, or is it something anybody can do? Because I always feel, maybe there's a lack of understanding of how to do jobs done, or maybe it's more technical, like you guys said, and then anybody thinks that they can do it. That we have tools as UX, people that anybody can do. People can do. I've seen user personas done by the product team. I don't think they're that great, but I've seen them do it. So I'm just curious what you guys think about the jobs to be done, ownership and creation of.
Traditionally, that was maybe in the past. The job to be done of the product manager, as far as I know. But I think the reason for that was, again, in the past, many years ago when I worked in another company. I think the reason was that because the product manager was in constant reach with the persona, with the users, and the UX wasn't that a lot there surrounding with the users. I think that was the reason. But currently, and now that we know that UXers need to talk with users all the time, need to be connected to them, there's no reason that they wouldn't know how to articulate that jobs to be done. Because, again, if they are not conducting any research at all, then
that's a problem.
It's a problem. But if they are, then it's not a problem.
Yeah. I think the PM side of jobs to be done is the end result. They can specify what they expect at the end, what they need, what they think the user needs.
Yeah.
We are the ones in charge of the whole flow, how to get there.
Yes. And collecting information. I think the part that Keren brings up is a important aspect to me, because I feel like, companies don't really spend the time on user research. And so regardless of the format, whether it's jobs to be done or user personas or something else, we still need to be in front of the users when we're designing stuff. I mean, that was so obvious to me. I think, at Zoom Info, we don't have a lot, like the PMs have more access to users than we do. And we really need to respect that we're designing something. We need to be able to articulate, hey, this is what we understood or heard from the user and why we designed the things the way that we designed them. So I feel like even whatever we choose, if we, discard user personas and go to jobs to be done or vice versa, those are tools that we have at our disposal. And sometimes you can't do a user persona because you don't have access to those people. And you know what, you maybe do need to reference AI, like I said, and do some searching online because you can't get from them. But it should not shortcut testing your designs, conducting some sort of research, making sure the users can use your product, very well. All those things should never be, circumvented. Like you need to actually do that kind of work from UX.
Oren, I think when I imagine your persona in your company that you're working on, I imagine it could be a lot of personas, right? It could be a mother, a father, and a grandmother, a grandfather. Could be a teenager, maybe. It could be a lot. Could be male, female, somebody that is very high tech and somebody that is very low tech. How do you work with those all kind of personas? Or again, maybe not. Like we said, only jobs to be done. Maybe that's the reason, because it's like so much to cover. Maybe.
Yeah. So it is a lot. So I think so. I'm still new there, but I think we go more by the actual exams. So the year exam, we take that. We take it apart. We think of all the ways to use it, the personas, and so for example, children, you have to add a plastic cup before you insert it in your ear. So there's a different size for adults and for children.
Okay.
For example,
Yeah.
let's say for heart and lungs.
Okay.
You actually, in your app, you can see an image of where to place the device each time for it to record, and it depends on who the patient is. It is a man, woman, or child.
Yeah.
And so your representation of what you see changes depending on that.
Yeah.
So
do you have profiles that you create for the device? Like is a device being used by multiple people? So maybe me and my husband are using the same device, and so then how do I set it up or use it for both different types?
Yeah. So eventually, whether you do it offline, you take the test and send it, or you do it with a physician online.
Okay.
The physician sees it, so they need to know who you are.
Yes.
And because the different heart rate of a child is different than a heart rate of an adult or a man and a woman.
Yes.
Or even pre-existing conditions or of sorts. They might affect. So they have to have your medical record present with them.
Yep.
So they have to know anyways. So it's never random.
Okay.
Wow.
That's interesting.
I didn't think that you have also doctors as persona.
Yeah.
I thought this is only for so that's another layer.
Yeah.
Right. Although currently doctors are more flat as a persona because but we do. By the way, we get more access to them than patients because of the
privacy.
Privacy issues.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I hear a lot of people who tell me, oh, if you need any patients, I'll be happy to help because they really like the device.
That's interesting. So you have actually done the jobs to be done for that work, or
yeah, kind of. I'm slowly improving the doctor's side.
okay.
And nothing too drastic currently, but yeah, For example, even we're asking physicians even about the locations of the dots where you check your device. But again, this is more technical. It's kind of a job to be done. It's not very much like how do you perceive it, or So, but I will get to a point where I need to improve the whole doctor experience, and I wonder. It doesn't look very easy. It has a lot of different buttons everywhere. We try to simplify it as much as we can, but it's still, it's still not the best. It's still very complex. It's a very complex, non-complex system. I mean, it is a complex system at the end.
It's interesting that you've used the doctor profile when it's actually the user that's actually using the device, right?
Right. When you meet a physician online, so you have your app.
Yeah.
As a patient, you see the doctor. The doctor has a web interface.
Okay.
So then they can instruct you what to do with the device. So you also have the device. You have your phone and the device. They can instruct you what to do. And let me just. I forgot I have it nearby.
No.
Live demo.
Yeah. Not exactly live demo because it's more complicated. So
while you're pulling that, can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Using persona is always, not always, but a lot of the time helping us to sell some ideas to the management, to customers. Not using a persona, using only jobs to be done. How is that going to affect while you are trying to convince or convey your message to the management?
Right. So that's why I said before, it's a good PR tool. That's why I say I sometimes create it after the fact.
Okay.
Just to explain better, the personas and users better. We also, I also want to bring actual users, the actual user feedback to explain why we did what we did. And again, that's also a discussion. What comes first? Does the PM get feedback, or do we get feedback, or do we think of something and then we ask the persona?
Yeah. Great. Well, that's something that goes into your.
Oh, this is the tongue suppressor for kids. For adults, it's a bit longer. And so you turn on the device. You also have a interface here that you can control. And there's a lot of regulation stuff. So you can only start your exam from the device, not from your app. Or the doctor can, from afar. So yeah, it's a lot of different. See, it has a flashlight, so you can actually look in your throat.
It's interesting. The screen. It's interesting that the screen is facing outward. Like when I'm thinking about it, if you're, yes, like screen is like for the doctor to read, right? Which is odd to me because as soon as you showed that to me, I was thinking to myself, I want to see the screen. I'm sticking it in here, and I want to see what the reason is, right? But it's facing that way, like it's for you and not me.
Right. So
that's interesting.
So like what he said before, it's a lot of the. I think that the initial persona was children, or at least someone else to help you with this.
Yes, that's so interesting. I was thinking about the nuances of that when you talked about the persona, and you said originally it was like doctors is the persona, but you have to create some kind of persona for the user. So I wonder what they did when they were creating the physical, industrial design aspects of it and trying to figure out, okay, our primary user for the physical device is a user and not a doctor. Did they do that? Or did they really consult with the doctors to say, this is how we want to design that?
So you actually have a lot of video tutorials, both on the device and on the application. So you can do things by yourself, and you can send it later to the doctor. In some cases, the doctor tells you. By the way, there's also help tutorial videos and help for the doctor's side, because it is a kind of first of its kind. There's no such device like this.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's like we don't have any competition, which makes it more difficult because we need to educate humanity that this exists. It's kind of like
Nice.
it's a new concept.
You are a pioneer.
Yeah.
On that.
So yeah, it is difficult to get to all the personas in this case.
Yeah.
And when I try to do it by myself without anyone helping me, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So we are thinking of how to add more guides that the device can tell you. For example, when you put it in your ear, we're trying to make it, add a note. It tells you, okay, the test is done. You did it correctly. Or
yes. I was going to say,
but you do get the feedback. You do get the feedback on your phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that, I mean, when you talked about it, I was thinking about the user persona as the user and saying to myself, if I can't see the screen, how am I getting feedback that I'm doing it properly? So it's very fascinating that the screen is on the outside and I'm it's sticking in there and I'm thinking, how do I see it so that I
so
get the feedback?
So it's usually for doing it to examining someone else. Like
but she's referring to another use case. What if you are, you want to test yourself?
Yeah. You need to do
Yes, it's not that easy. So it has a lot of interesting challenges. That's why I said, I mean, user personas there are so many different user personas. So I think maybe thinking about it as more of use cases or jobs to be done is easier.
Yes.
Why they chose it. See, it makes me think when I talk to you about the user personas and saying, okay, here's all of the user personas that we have for this particular feature, product, application, whatever we're designing. How do we prioritize who we're designing for? And in your case, it's so fascinating that it is not the patient, it's really the doctor, right? Like that's what it seems like to me, because the outside is facing towards somebody else. It's somebody else administering this instead of, and especially given that this device is something that I'm not going to the doctor, I'm doing it at home, right? And so I find it fascinating that it is really like there's a necessity for another user to be, like two people to be doing this, given that you're doing it at home. That's fascinating to me. I think it's a great, use case in this situation to talk about user personas, because it feels like it's the you specifically said the doctor, was the person that you're designing for. And it's apparent now that when they look at the device, like it's not that they prioritize the doctor first, right?
By the way, I think even kids when they are measuring their fever, they love to see the results. They always look at the results, always. It's fascinating to them how it go up when it have this beep at the end. They love that. So maybe maybe that's another product, maybe it's another phase. But creating something valuable even for kids could be something that they would want to do. They're not be so horrified from it, or I don't know, just an idea. And by the way, going back to the AI, what if every time you create Oren or Allanna, whoever, conduct a user research and you record the session, you feed the AI with that transcript.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
Then a couple of months away, you will get like a summary of that specific persona or kind of persona with all that knowledge, right? You can feed that your AI all the time, of course, with all the research that you do, and create agents like that. Okay, that's an agent. And you can even talk with that agent. Let's say, you know what? You have an agent that is a mother, age 30, and she has a kid, age 4. And you create that agent with that AI all the time. You have an agent, and then when you create something in your Figma, you have a question you can ask that agent. Hey, how do you feel? And what do you think? You know what I mean?
Persona sort of
Like a digital AI persona that I'm
Yeah, to
Like
test.
a dynamic persona.
Yes, yes.
about it.
That's fascinating. You know what? Actually, it makes me think. So one of the points I wanted to bring up before is like a user persona is never done, right?
Yes,
Like my brain, like of the work that I've done for user personas, it is something that you start off with and you create like, okay, this is my first iteration of a user persona. It's,
yeah,
like I said, that sales operations user for admin portal. And this is what our understanding is from the 5 people that we've talked to, but it's never completed, right? Like there's always more information to collect. There's always there's another feature that we're building. We need to go out and get some research or do some testing on that. And we need to take that information, add that to the user persona, or maybe we're creating another flavor of the user persona, or maybe we're creating more jobs to be done that are different on it. So it's important, I think, from my perspective, just to say out loud, like I never expect it to be done. Like I have worked on user personas. You start them, you just continue to build on them. They're just not that's one of the things I think is important for us to educate, like the organization that we're working with, that like we created this persona, but it lives and it breathes and it evolves, right? There could be new technology that came out, and
right.
so they need to use this and they're doing that, and so you would have to add those jobs to be done, or you'd have to add to the user persona, and it would continue to live. And so it's not like a one and done kind of thing that's ever just, here we go, we're handing it off. The next person can come along just to consume that and continue to build for it. I really think that's important to.
That's a lot to handle.
Yes.
Day to day on the UX world, it's really, really a lot to handle. So if we will not leverage, in my opinion, AI to that, or if we will not have some kind of strategy around our org on how to use that or how to build that,
Yes.
then we will never get to it. We will never do it right. We will never. It will maybe we'll do it, maybe we'll stop in the middle.
No.
It will never be as good as we want it to be. So the organization needs to have a strategy regarding whether it's AI, whether it's a person, that this is his job, whether it's 20% of your time you are as a UXer, you need to do something regarding the persona. That's also fine. Or maybe there's no personas, there's jobs to be done. That's also fine.
Yeah.
So it's all comes to, I think, planning or how the organization would love that to work.
Yes. Totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's important too. I think the user persona, the jobs to be done, is a mechanism for us sharing information, right? Like sharing the same understanding we have of our user. Like that was the most significant thing that I learned about user personas, is like, now that I've created this first draft of it and I've shared it with the engineers, everybody in the organization, now we all have the same understanding of who we're designing for. Because it doesn't have to be right. Like it could be, this is the one person we're focused on right now. And now we all know that information. So I feel like it's important to say, we're creating this so we have a shared understanding of who we're designing for. That's one of the most significant aspects of it, is like, it's you, because you could go in and be like, this is what we're doing. I've talked to these people and this is what, this is what I think we're designing for. Somebody on the UX side could have talked to somebody and said, this is what we're doing, so now that we've created this document, so to speak, we all now can take a look at it and understand this is really who we're targeting with the product that we're building. I feel like that's
the basic stuff of good communication between, departments, between personas in the organization. Actually, everything starts and ends with a good communication, and that's something that helps that.
Yeah, that's why I feel like that in and of itself is one of the most significant things to me, because it's like you would be on a project and you're designing a product and you would constantly have resources going in and out. Like we worked with this engineering team, they left and we got some new people in, and it's like, hey, let's go over the onboarding. Let's talk about the user persona we're designing for again, because you're new and we want to make sure you understand who we're designing for. And so that I always feel is like really significant to share, so they at least understand, like, no, we're not designing for that, or that we're going to consider next quarter, but here's where we're focused right now.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe maybe personas don't change as much, but
Yeah.
I do think maybe combining the jobs to be done with
Yeah.
that persona, because there could be a lot of different 40, 30-year-old women with 4 years old kid.
Yeah.
With different opinions, different needs.
Right.
Yes.
So, but some of the jobs to be done. Oh wait, I need this and that.
Yes. Yes.
It gets added to the list.
Yes.
Right.
Maybe there's an evolution that needs to take place with the job, with the user persona, and maybe it's more of the jobs to be done is a better mechanism for product designers to be using in the future.
Yeah.
And that way everybody can kind of contribute to it. I do think that when the product teams conduct interviews or talk to users, or they're doing testing or something, we should hold them responsible for contributing to this documentation, this jobs to be done, this user persona. Like, we need to educate them on how to do that, because we know, like in Zoom Info, there's a lot of times that the product team talks to users and they don't share those insights with us. And so how do we get those insights from them out of their head to the product, the product designers, so they know what's going on? What do you guys think about that? I mean, like, I feel like there's that aspect of it where we're not going to stop them from talking to users, but we do want to understand what they're hearing and make sure that they're able to share it with us on the design team so that we can leverage those insights. What's the best approach for that, you guys think?
So maybe jobs to be done is a good way to actually communicate, because it's so technical. It's easier to break into tasks, for engineers, for product. But I do like your idea of having this one persona or a couple of personas to educate the people who are working on that feature or on the product. What are we doing it for? And then they can start breaking it down to jobs to be done and understand. It's kind of a language that everyone can speak.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. It feels like the more modern approach to this, and maybe more successful. I mean, I don't know. My experience is we advocate for doing a user persona, but you're right. Like, the organization isn't always on board with that. They're kind of like, okay, well, you do your little product design flex crap. That's what should feel good. But I do think that's why I say, like, using it as a communication tool and maybe partnering it with the jobs to be done is a way for them to consume it all and make sure that we are grounded in what we're designing, because that's the whole goal, right, of the user persona. Is like, who's the user? It's to help the organization, not just us, to help the organization understand who we're designing for, right? That's really the whole goal of being able to build it or to do it. It's just, that's it. That's the reason for it.
So we tend to forget the reasoning for us doing stuff. It could happen to anyone, and it happens in many cases. One of the cases is this: sometimes we create persona just for the sake of creating a persona. That's not the reason. The reason is that there's a problem that you want to know the answer to, and that is the persona is a tool to help you solve that problem. That's it.
Yes.
Create a persona like you want to be solved.
And that's exactly the reason I brought up this subject, because I never like doing it just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. They're all tools. I think that's so important to me to come back to, like, all of these things that we have as UX, product designers are tools, right? And there's a reason why you use them. There may be cases where a user persona makes more sense in the situation that you're in, the circumstances, maybe the access. Like, look, when I was doing the trucking person, I didn't have access to that person. I didn't know how to get access to finding out what they do. So I said, my way to collect information is literally to go on to AI and figure out how do I get this information, right? And so that was the approach that I took. But all of these things we have are tools, right, to solve problems, and we can use them. product manager, anybody can use these tools, and it depends on the circumstances, right? Like sometimes when you do user research, you don't actually have access to users. So you have to check another tool and figure out, how am I going to solve this problem? How am I going to figure out whether this works or not? And I think that's really significant here. It's like user personas are a tool for us to use. It makes sense in some situations it does not. Jobs to be done maybe makes more sense. But if we can advocate for the right thing, sometimes the combination of those sounds like the right thing to be doing, if we can. In the most ideal scenario, it helps you have a very thorough understanding of who you're designing for.
Well said. Well said. That we need to reconnect to our roots, why we need it, right?
Yeah.
And it goes for everything that we're doing, not just persona. Maybe in the next chapter we can talk about other stuff that are tools for us to solve a problem.
Okay.
And those tools needs to be
flexible
for us.
Yes, absolutely. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Beautiful.
Oren, what do you think? Is that
Okay, fine. I'll do persona sometime. I guess.
yeah?
I'm so glad we convinced you. That's the whole purpose of this.
Know your problem. Know what is a problem.
That I'm a stubborn persona myself.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. See, if we hadn't done the persona, we wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's a good conclusion.
Thank you. That's awesome. We should have a separate session where if you're allowed to show us your device and give us a demo, people would love that. I mean, I like the advancements of that. I know that there's a lot of people that are potentially, I think in the current state of the world, we're at home, we might do telehealth, so I think it's fascinating to learn about that. And I think physical user experience is fascinating too as well.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes.
Love it.
I really love the challenge of it.
It's cool. Thank you. Okay.
Good to have you here, Oren.
Yes.
Thank you for having me in your show.
Thank you. We miss you so much. We would love to have you here again, of course.
I know. That's true.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Holiday. See you at the
Bye.
next.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.